Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. Thank you so much for being with us here on the program. We are here Mondays through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. Oh, that's not all, folks, because we have a total of 9 programs. We're here on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for a very special edition of Tell Me Your Story. And then on the weekends, that's right, the weekends, Sunday, 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday morning. I know that's not the weekend, but just the same. It's a carryover at 1 a.m. That's Monday morning. Streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com. That's 9 programs, 9 conversations, 9 guests. Although today we have 2 guests with us on the program, and I'm excited to have them both with us. And we stream live at those times at richarddugan.com. We podcast at SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. We're also on YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. We hope you'll subscribe and click notification so that when a new conversation is posted by yours truly, you'll be notified and you can tune in and listen to that conversation. And we hope that you'll do that. We also ask that if you can support the work we're doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. We greatly appreciate all of the support that we've been getting. And it's been over the last 5 or 6 years that we've been doing this particular thing with the video and so forth. And we hope that you can do that through PayPal. When they ask you for an email address to whom you are sending, it's richard@richarddugan.com. That's richard@richarddugan.com. And thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. It is greatly appreciated. And you know what? We will take energetic support as well. So we appreciate anything that you can send us either way. All right. We also ask that if you can take time to go within during this, the decade of perfect vision, spending time in that peaceful, quiet, calm, still place, and listen to that still small voice. I have a celebration coming up in the month of June, near the end thereof, that if I could take my recording equipment into that still small place and record my program from there for that special broadcast, I would, but at least so far, that's not technologically possible, but I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't become possible in the not too distant future. Today's program is a return to one of our very special guests, and it is plural. We are going to be talking about something that has fascinated me for a long time, and a lot of people as well, especially in the context, well, of broadcasting and radio. Some of the early radios were crystal radio sets. You would buy this kit and you would put it together, and you could pick up radio stations from a lot of different places. It was fascinating that these crystals that they used, I'm not even sure what kind they were able to sort of magnify those radio waves and then transmit them through that little speaker. And then you could hear, I don't know, music. I don't know if that's even possible, if you could set it up for shortwave, whatever the case might be. This little device with those crystals could pull in those transmissions. Well, we're not going to be talking about the crystals and crystal radio sets. We're going to be talking about the Chintamani crystal matrix. That is also the title of the book. It's the quantum intention and the wish fulfillment gem with our very special guests. Pardon me as I take a little swallow there. Hapi Hara, she is with us along with her partner there. And his name is Johndennis Rangdong. Maybe I'm going a little overboard here. Namkha Govert. And I want to thank both of you for indulging me in my pronunciation and being with us here on the program.
Thanks for thanks for the interview.
Well, you've been on the program before. We had you on, I guess, a few years back. And we've all done some new things, some different things, some exciting things. And we can talk about that. But I would like to talk with the two of you, Johndennis and Hapi, about the Chintamani crystal in particular, and this matrix you speak of. A lot of us, we think we know what the matrix is because we've seen the movies with Keanu, Mr. Reeves to most of us. And and I'm still trying to figure out from the movie which is the right pill to take, the blue or the red one, and it has nothing to do with politics. Okay, nothing to do with politics. But talk to us about we'll dive into the crystal itself, but let's talk about what a matrix is, and can we relate it to like virtual VR that people put those goggles on and they're because I heard one guy he says, "Oh yeah, I forgot I had the goggles on and I was going to step down some steps and I nearly fell because there were no physical steps. They were so into what they were experiencing through the goggles." So what is a matrix?
Well,
Okay, I'm not hearing you, unfortunately, and I'm not sure why.
can you hear
There you,
that
there
now?
you go. There you go.
Okay, well, I always tell people about the Matrix since I don't do drugs, so I don't take any pills. Or maybe I'm into some sort of crystal matrix. Anyway, well, but John Dennis, you wanna start off with what the matrix is that we're talking about?
Well, I mean, matrix just means like background, right? Like the Earth ecology is a matrix, you know, and it means, a mother grid. It's kind of, if you're going to translate it from Latin,
Mhm.
probably that's what you'd say. So therefore, it supports and gives birth to whatever's there. The crystal matrix that we were talking about goes back to Hinduism, like the earliest mythology, and the myth is of what you call it, the crystal net or the gem net of Indra, the king of the gods.
Mhm.
And so there was a sinister matrix. So maybe we're on the right track. And there was a better matrix. So
Mhm.
the sinister matrix was actually like a weapon. If you read some of the Vedic literature, it's a weapon. Indra controlled everybody through the matrix, which was above the sky. It was enveloping, and it acted. Yeah, it could be punishment. It could be directed at somebody he didn't like.
Mhm.
So there was that matrix, and then there was the matrix of like support of all life, and then the idea of the crystal matrix, in as it kind of went on and got picked up in Buddhism, was that there, if you just imagine that there's this net, and at every node in the net there is a crystal or there's a gem, and all of these gems are completely and utterly interrelated. So when you talk about cause and effect, you can't say A creates B, because it's like all of these things co-create at the same time. So
Mm.
it's this massive co-creation that happens. So the crystal matrix is like that. And then what we've kind of discovered with that, of course, is that any crystal gem you hold plugs you into that, connection. So
Mm.
you're suddenly there. So even though you may have like one crystal in your hand, you're connected to everything. There you go. You are connected. We're totally connected to the matrix.
Oh, I hope that's a good thing. Hey, what's the
Yeah.
difference between a matrix and the multiple dimensions that many people do believe exist? Or are they one and the same?
You could actually look at it as like layers, like maybe each dimension is its own matrix, and then maybe how they all kind of come together. Um, Together is like it creates another thing. It's like our solar system. The Milky Way is going into Andromeda, right? It's going to take millions and millions of years, but here they are. They're mixing, and they're each like their own matrix, but they're combining. So now they're creating one, two, and a third one, together. So
Mm.
I think that's more what it's like.
All right. And you've already made reference to the crystal matrix, but you have a book out, of course, as I made reference to, the Chintamani crystal matrix. So what sets that apart from your everyday crystal that I happen to be holding here in my hand for those who are watching on YouTube? Okay, can't hear you.
One of the things we tried to do with our book was we wanted a different kind of crystal energy book. Not just an encyclopedia of crystals, and the same, because there's been tons of books written like that. I wanted to I feel like we wanted to go a little deeper with crystal energy, and once we started studying something called the wish fulfilling gem, which is the Chintamani, and that's what Chintamani means. It means like mind gem. That's what gave me the idea, like, oh, this is the book that we need to write, like using crystals to support our intentions, okay? Or also using crystals to enlighten us towards the correct intentions. So then you're building crystal grids with the intention in mind. You wear crystals with the intention in mind. You're wearing rings with this intention in mind. And so I think of the book as like using crystals with higher intention. And it's not just about, and we need to delve into this in the book too. It's not just about, oh, I want a Porsche, so I'm going to build a crystal grid so I can get my Porsche. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's also about elevating your consciousness so that you are wishing for the right things. Okay. Like you're going towards spiritual development. You're helping the world towards spiritual enlightenment. Mm-hmm. I mean, our book kind of discusses this a little bit too. Like, you know, so sometimes when we want something and it's not occurring, it's because our soul and our higher consciousness is not in alignment with our higher purpose. Okay, mm-hmm. not like our lower wishes are not in alignment with our soul purpose.
Right.
So we do discuss this in the book about like part of the use of crystals is also to get into alignment with our correct purpose so that we know what we want and we know what our intention is.
Yeah. In The Secret, they talk about the law of attraction. And I remember, I have the video, the DVD at home, and I was interviewing someone shortly after it came out, and they said that they left something out. They didn't do it on purpose. It was probably unintentional. But basically, what they left out was what you just described. Just because it's, for example, I don't want a Porsche. I don't want a Corvette. I think they're neat looking cars, but it sounds weird. My very first, I consider it my first car, was a 1998 black Chevy Metro. All right. I think a little smaller than a Pinto. And I love that little car. We drove it across country. We drove it from Phoenix to Santa Barbara, got 55 miles to the gallon. It was so cool. My brother used to jokingly say that it was my roller skate. I would jokingly say that two of the cylinders helped to keep the air conditioning going in the summertime, because at that time I was living in Phoenix, and the third cylinder, and it was only a 3-cylinder, would keep the motor running. I loved that it was so great. It was like my little bubble. And of course we all have them, you know, and you have to be careful when you're in a bubble, you know, that kind of thing. But I'm not interested in having a mansion with, I've never understood this. We've got 500 rooms and 2 bathrooms, or, you know, 2 rooms and 500 bathrooms. And I've never understood that when you don't have an equal number of both. But anyway, that's not, you know, and there's a wonderful Irish adage, if you will, when it comes to people who talk about, you know, the right to own property and so on and so on and so on. And it's like, whether you're a farmer or you're a homeowner, guess what? You don't own the land. The land owns you. And it's just like with the animals that come into our lives, we don't choose them. They choose us. So when you're in this crystal matrix, and in this case, the Chintamani crystal matrix, as you're raising your consciousness, as you know, if we want to put it in this context, you are guided to the things that are going to support you. You attract to you those things that are going to support your life's or soul's purpose, right?
Well, right, exactly. And then the main part of like the Chinta part of it is like this mind gem is what are your intention, but it's usually like what is the greatest intention you could have for the benefit of all beings. So there's like an archetype of a Chintamani gem that, you know, certain beings can possess that confers power, but it confers the obligation to benefit all beings first. And there's where the rub comes in. It's like people, you know, look for this the archetypal gem that will grant them power, but they don't want to share it. They don't want to share in the, in the benefit, and they don't put other people before them. So they're sort of like the rub.
Yeah. It's one of the things that, and it's a little different on a different scale here, but more in the material world, is that in the business that I've been in for 45 years, I never wanted to hold on to any of the information that I gathered, any of the techniques, any of the learning that I had, because if I did, guess what? I get stuck. I can't move from where I'm at because I haven't shared what I'm doing here in order to be able to leave here and move to there, because I become extremely territorial with the information and so forth and so on. And I see that a lot in a lot of different institutions, political, religious, and the list goes on. And that's really unfortunate because it prevents us from growing, doesn't it? I don't know how much longer I'll be doing these podcasts. I hope my plan is to live to be over 100, to outlive my great grandmother on my mother's side. That's the plan. And God is laughing. Ha, 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 ha. But I'll do this as long as I'm guided to do it. And then when it's time for me to move on to the next level, I'll share all of what it is that I know with those around me who want to do it, so that I can then step out of this role and into the next role. That's really what this whole conversation here about the Chintamani crystal matrix is all about, isn't it? It's not just a lateral, but it is a horizontal and lateral movement in our lives, right? The transformation, if you will, or some would say the evolution of mankind. Is that what we're talking about here? Okay, can't hear you again.
Oh yeah, the fourth is about the evolution of one's person. Yes, Richard. The core of the book is about advancing spiritual consciousness for one as an individual, but also for the enlightenment of all sentient beings. I mean, that's a repeated message in our book. We even have practices in the book. It's like towards the last 2 chapters of the book, one of them is very much about the practical use of crystals, how to meditate with them, how to activate them. And then Johndennis wrote the last chapter of the book, which was getting a lot deeper even into Buddhist practices of working with crystals, but getting away from just the crystal completely on the physical level and then kind of going into more of a spiritual level with it.
How involved are the other philosophies of the world when it comes to crystals? Are there references in many of the ancient wisdom teachings, whether it be the Gita, the Quran, the Bible, or whatever other writings, because there are some philosophies where it's not written down, that talk about the effects, the influences, the purposes, if you will, of and the uses of crystals?
Well, I mean, I find it kind of interesting that I've definitely run across Christians who think that crystal energy is satanic, okay, or witchcraft or things like that. However, if you look at the Old Testament, the high priest in front of the Ark of the Covenant wore a golden breastplate with 12 gemstones. Mm-hmm. And those gemstones are all mentioned in the Bible. I mean, they say which row they are, which stone is there. So they're putting a lot of attention onto these gemstones, and they represented the 12 tribes of Israel. Mm-hmm. And then according to Hebrew, in other Hebrew texts, the gemstones would light up when the high priest was in front of the Ark of the Covenant, and the Shekinah was resting on top of the Ark of the Covenant. Mm. And so certain gemstones would light up, and this was the way that the high priest was communicating with God through the Ark of the Covenant. It's like crystals were being used inside gold as in some type of spiritual technology.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I don't know if it gets more new age than that. That's
Well,
very old age.
right.
You know?
I've actually, it is very old age, and I've actually had conversations in that regard, talking with individuals who, um, like you just stated, think that there's something, in this context, satanic and et cetera, with, with the use of crystals. And obviously you've quite explained that, hey, it's been going on for centuries. This is nothing new. And I remember talking with someone and having a conversation. We were talking about metaphysics, and I said, I'm a student. I consider myself a metaphysician. Okay. To that end, do you have any idea what the definition of metaphysics is? And they said, no. I said, well, you might want to think about that, because the definition of metaphysics is beyond the physical, and Christianity is just that. The teachings of Jesus had to do with things beyond the physical. Did he talk about things of the physical? Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render unto God what is God, what is God's. Yeah, fine. That's in this world. But the point was to get your focus off of this world, so that you were, yes, in the world, but not of it. And to me, the crystals that allow us to make that divine connection, help us to not be of it in the context of the way in which we live. I was talking with someone not long ago about, for example, many of our laws. All right. For example, taxation. And of course, a lot of criticism is made of those who use all of the quote unquote loopholes, the laws. They're all there to pay as little tax as is possible. Well, okay, you haven't broken any laws, but how ethical, how moral is that when you are a member of this very community, whether it's a city, state, nation, you're a member of this community, and they need all the help they can get, and yet you're trying to hold on to everything that you've got. How moral is that? How ethical is that? No, you haven't broken any laws. That's fine. But I've heard our integrity described as a plastic, like a sheet of cellophane. And every time we do something that is unethical, that is in violation to the core values of self, we poke holes in it until eventually it's not a sheet of cellophane anymore. So that's, to me, where if we connect with the divine through these crystals, we make, and let's talk about our intuition. I mentioned earlier about, going within and listening to that still small voice. How important is that when talking about using crystals?
So in the book, we describe how to activate crystals, how to meditate with them, even how to program them. Okay. And I do one-on-one sessions with people, and I always start off with, I have them select a crystal, and then I teach them how to warm it up and turn it on, because quartz is piezoelectrical. So what you want to do is, when you hold it, you want to rub it, put some heat on it, put some friction on it to kind of turn it on, wake it up. And then once it's awoken, I always recommend putting over the heart so that it can put the heart into a more rhythmic state. That's why quartz is used in clocks and watches, because it brings harmonic rhythm, okay, to ticking. And so once you're holding a quartz, it starts calming down the nervous system. It starts bringing the heart rate into a more regular rhythm, and allows you to go into a meditative state deeper, faster. It's actually a time-saving device, okay? And it's starting to repair your auric field, adding energy to the auric field. And I have seen this happen many times, where people who came in an agitated state, I was able to calm them down very, very fast by just having them hold a quartz crystal, okay? And so then they can have a deeper conversation within themselves. Or, if I start asking them questions like, okay, why are you here? What are you working on? What are your intentions? It's like by spending a few minutes with the quartz, it allows them to kind of stabilize the nervous system and the heart rate and everything so that they can start talking and opening up to the right brain a little bit better. Okay. Just calming down the nervous system takes away a lot of the noise that prevents us from actually listening to our intuition. So I think the quartz being in your hand for several minutes will help you start listening to your intuition.
The Chintamani Crystal Matrix is the title of the book. Chintamani Matrix. That's ChintamaniMatrix.com. That's the website we'll be linked to. And of course, we're talking with Hapi Hara and Johndennis, and we are talking about the use of crystals in our lives. And the crystals are used throughout our various industries on the planet. I think that if they're not used intact, they're usually processed in such a way as to fit into whatever elements they're working on, whether it's computers or high tech this or that or the other, and so on and so forth. So obviously, the institutions that we have on the planet, they know what the value of a crystal is from that standpoint. And I'm curious as to, because I know that, as I mentioned earlier, the one invention of the crystal radio set, and I don't even know what kind of crystal was being used. I should know this. I should know a little history of my industry. But be that as it may, it's fascinating to me to know that. And I mean, we have crystals all over our house. This one that I showed you, this one, I carry in my pocket. I have it in my pocket. My wife actually gave it to me to carry in my pocket, along with a little, and I don't even know what the crystal is, the stone, not so much crystal, but stone, of a bear, which is my, I guess, what do they call them? Fetish or totem, I guess, is another word too. And then I carry another little light green colored rock in my pocket that I got from somebody else, and so forth. So I have those three things, and fortunately I don't rattle when I walk, so that's a good thing. But it's, to me, fascinating that people, they have them around their necks. They'll put them, on a chain and put them around their necks. I know that in Vedic astrology, when you are given a reading, your astrologer is going to tell you what gems, precious stones, and or crystals, maybe to make into either a ring or a bracelet so that the gem or stone is actually touching the skin. What about physical contact? I mean, you talked a moment ago about like taking the crystal and just doing one of these to heat it up, right? Something
That's
like
right.
this. Okay.
That's right.
So, and I don't know if it's heated up or not sufficiently, but I'm curious as to that whole aspect of maybe making a ring or a pendant or a bracelet where the gem is actually, or the stone or the crystal is touching the physical skin. Does it really matter as long as it's close enough, or is it better that it is actually making physical contact with the human body?
I think it really depends on the crystal itself. I think pearls absolutely need to touch the skin, because pearls are made out of calcium carbonate. Once they touch the skin, it's like our nervous system starts bioenergetically absorbing the calcium, immediately starts calming everything down. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like something like pearls and coral, because they're so much more organic, our body absorbs them a lot easier. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When we're getting into diamonds and sapphires and rubies, those are very, very hard crystals. Diamonds have a hardness of 10, sapphires 9. These things are hard to break.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they really need to touch the skin. Mm-hmm. They can be set in metals. I think the whole point of those crystals is for our auric field to absorb them. Okay. Mm-hmm. So like having them on us with some metal is fine, because sometimes, I kind of think of crystals and gemstones as vitamins for the auric field. We're always taking vitamins or pharmaceuticals or whatever interior, but then wearing them is like bioenergetically absorbing them on a whole nother frequency. Okay. And so as long as they're close to the body, even if they're not technically touching it, your body's aura is getting shifted by these. Okay. So I'm probably not so much like, oh, they absolutely need to touch the skin. I think it really depends on the piece. Like if people are working on heart problems, say they have heart dysrhythmia, I think it's good to have a piece of quartz right there on the chest, right on the skin. Okay. So, and the same thing with pearls, but like in rings, I'm not sure it really needs to touch the skin. Okay.
Johndennis, I'm going to ask you as a guy, this is not something that is mainstream for a lot of guys. It's like, oh yeah, that's either airy-fairy or no, I don't wear jewelry. I mean, in my first marriage, I had the hardest time even having a wedding band, on my finger because it just didn't feel natural, that kind of thing. And yet, obviously, I'm carrying around this crystal and the other items I mentioned. I have around my neck, embedded in silver, a piece of turquoise, which I know is not a crystal. It's a stone, along with, from Eastern astrology, Vedic astrology, a kavach with all of the numbers and everything etched into it that I've worn for, well, probably close to 25 years. And it's not like these things protect us. I mean, it's not like the shields are up and nobody can get in. It's more like, I think it minimizes to some degree the malefic elements that may come upon us. I'm curious as to how you first were introduced to this concept, and was it a challenge and a struggle for you? Like I being a guy, nah, that's not masculine, that's not what a real man has, kind of thing. What about you?
Well, mostly, my family was like collectors of things, so just, like collecting rock specimens, but then you pick them up and like you were just doing, you hold them in your hand. And then the easiest thing for a guy to do is what you're doing. Rock pockets in your rocks in your pockets. It just, when you put it, you can't, you don't have to display it. And there you go. Nobody's going to judge you about it. But if you can feel the energy, you can feel the energy. And that's just how it is. And so you just have to and then it's actually easier because then there's not like people like looking down their nose at you like socially. But it's like, so it's great to have something under your, like a necklace under your shirt or something. So it's doing it, or like, you have some kind of a ring that's got a, particular stone that's connected to your Vedic astrology, for instance. But, it's a matter also, I think, of just like making experiments. It's like, if you hold this, what does it do? If you don't hold it, if you don't put those rocks in your pocket, what happens to you the next day? I mean, do you notice it?
Yeah.
And if you do notice it, then, you've experimentally proved to yourself that there's a value there.
So I went to Tahiti once, like on a pearl buying trip. Okay. And, and the Tahitian men, they are warriors there. Okay. Like they're men's men. All right. And they have something there called man pearls. Okay. And what they do is they'll take these big Tahitian pearls, put them on leather cords. They carve their warrior symbols on them and they wear them proudly. And nobody's going to call these guys sissies, okay? Believe me. But then I've also known male pearl dealers here in the United States. And what they'll do is they'll get those big, like, Mave pearls, those kind of organic-looking pearls. They'll drill and put them on leather cords, and they wear them. And they call them man pearls. Yeah. So I'm always saying this to men. Men can absolutely wear pearls, okay? I mean, they don't have to be dainty little strands, but there's other kinds of pearls that you can wear. Because pearls are actually very good for men to wear.
Now, we're in the 21st century, and we've had a lot of changes, evolutionary changes in our species, especially in the West, but globally for that matter. And we've been through a few evolutionary phases. One of them we're still going through, and that is, and I put it in this context, giving women equal pay for equal work. I've never understood that whatsoever. Why? Two human beings, regardless of gender, who do exactly the same job get paid differently. It's like, that makes no sense. And the only way that could be different is if, he's been doing it for 20 years. She's only been doing it for 2. That I can sort of, I can relate to. You haven't done the work yet. You haven't paid your dues. And I understand that. But we've also gone through the whole issue with the acceptance of same-sex relationships and so forth. Oh my goodness, I was in the religious radio station back in the early 80s when certain things weather phenomenon would happen to wipe out this place or that or the other, and the religious leaders say that's God's judgment on man for his discretions, his sin is this, that, and I'm going, okay, well, let's take that to the 21st century. And then, of course, as we're speaking in this conversation, there have been some serious tornado alley events going on for the last few days here at the end of the month of May that have been wiping out one town after another. So that must be God's judgment on those communities. They must be doing something immoral by other people's standards. And I'm going, no, it's just nature. It's just what is. And now we're dealing with this whole conversation regarding trans. I don't fully understand it, let alone the pronouns. What is your name? I'll call you by your name. Let's just forget the pronouns. Let me just call you by your name. But we're going through these phases that I've noticed, okay, over the last 40 plus years. And what I'm curious about is the young people and their receptivity. That's the word I want. Receptivity to this aspect of crystals. Does it seem that they find it that's sort of foreign, or, oh, no big deal, I understand, it makes perfect sense to me, kind of thing? What's your observation, your experience been?
Oh, the young people love crystals. They're much more into it. They understand it. I was working with some young people yesterday about crystals. I was taking them to little vortex spots with crystals. I mean, it was phenomenal how open they were to energy and crystals. But generally, even in, like, say, older generations, kids love crystals. Think about when you were a little boy, you probably loved rocks. Okay. Oh, yeah. I mean, and I did too. I remember the first time my grandmother took me to a rock shop. I mean, like, it was done for me then, I love rocks.
Did you ever have a pet rock?
Oh, I had a lot of them.
You had a lot of them before it was cool to call them pet rocks.
Yeah. But children have an affinity for crystal energy. Okay. I see it all the time. And then we grow up and then we lose this part of ourselves. So I love working with young people, but now even beyond children, I would say, like, people in their 20s, they seem to be very, very open to crystal energy,
But in light of what I was sharing as far as our evolutionary process over the last 40, 50 years, more specifically, and apparently as we move forward, people do delve into history. And what they find is these quote unquote anomalies in the species they aren't anomalies. They have been happening as long as man's been on the planet. People have been experiencing these same things, whether it's opposite sex, same sex, trans, whatever the case might be. There are people down through history who, if you look far enough, you look deep enough, you will find this is not something new any more than this aspect of crystals. But I'm wondering, I'm holding a crystal in my hand. It came out of, shall we say, out of the ground. I wonder, are we doing any damage to Mother Earth by removing them and moving them around the planet, in our pockets and wherever? Is there I mean, or are there sufficient crystals? We don't have to worry about there are more than enough under the earth that we're not disrupting the magnetic flow. We're not disrupting the energetic flow, the vortices like in Sedona and so forth. What's your thought on that?
I've always sort of felt like there's this, like if we go to a place, they say don't remove the crystals or put them in your pocket, you're gonna get cursed if you do that. And I'm respectful to whatever local traditions or cultures there are. But what I'm much more concerned about is mass mining. Okay. Mass mining for our technological world. That's really what's destroying the planet, not you picking up a pebble off of a beach. Okay. And so sometimes, like I'm not gonna feel guilty about the quartz that I have when there's mass corporate mining, strip mining going on.
Yeah.
Okay. So that I think if you get corporate level at anything, that's really where we need to be concerned. That's my feelings about it. I mean, Johndennis, what do you feel?
The crystals are all organic, and they're going to continue to grow. They're just growing at a different rate than we are. And we don't really know what's definitely in all of these mines. I mean, we don't know how deep things go. There's just sort of an infinity of it. And then, like if you have the things that you have, if you revere them and you use them, as opposed to like their ornamentation, so to speak, then that's a whole different connection, and then the minute you're engaging it as a tool to help you and to help you help other people, that's a whole different engagement. And that's absolutely a proper engagement for all of us.
Yeah. I have seen some of these documentaries on the I guess we'd refer to them as asteroids, where they've gotten close enough with some of the telescopes and probes and so forth. They're able to see that, oh my goodness, these things are rich in minerals like platinum and gold and nickel and zinc and on and on and on and on. And there was this one in particular that had so many of these different minerals. They calculated that at the current market rate, if this particular asteroid would be worth somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 quadrillion dollars. And that if there was a way for them to mine it, the price of the minerals on the planet would just go right through the floor. And it's like, okay, well, that's the material aspect. But is that really what we need to be doing? It seems to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have all the tools that we really need, i.e. the crystals. Here on the planet, we don't need to go out into the solar system to look for more. We've got plenty here, setting aside the whole corporate mining thing, which I do understand, that, we don't need to be going elsewhere as an individual. I would put it that way, as an individual, leave the of alterations to this planet. And it's just one of those things that I think is real interesting because we're coming to, I think, a place in time in our human existence where I'm hoping with the work that you folks are doing, as well as what we're doing with this program, sharing the ideas and the concepts and so forth that you folks are sharing through the Chintamani Crystal Matrix, the book, that I think more and more people are beginning to understand that. I think that their awareness and maybe their consciousness is elevating a little bit each day, each week, to where more and more people are beginning to understand, hey, we can turn this around. We can make this a better place for everyone. Your thoughts?
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, it's the whole point of this idea of the Chintamani. When you looked at one of the things we found out when we were researching it, which was kind of weird, is that more than half of the depictions of Buddhas, enlightened beings, hold a gem. So it's almost like an emblem of their enlightenment in a way, but it's an emblem of their compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, that is an evolution. So it's like it's something that kind of aids them going forward, aids them with their work. But it is part of our evolution in a sense, and they are here to help us grow, and they are here to, I think, actually turbocharge our evolution at this point of time, because now we have the ability to interact with them a little bit more, and consciously. And there's, our book, but there's hundreds of books about exploring this. So it's like come into our consciousness about what can we do? What is this whole mineral world out there
Mm-hmm.
relative to human evolution, and how can you improve one another and their independent evolutions.
I wanted to dovetail a little bit on what you said earlier, Richard, about we really have everything we need here on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I feel like we kind of discussed that a little bit in the book. Like we have the word wish fulfilling gem and quantum intention on the front of the book, but as you delve into the book and its practices, I think it's a little bit about going a little in the void and wanting nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's actually more of a truer statement of enlightenment. And I've done that with some of when I've done workshops and led meditations, is like, for a moment, just go into the void and get rid of everything that you think you want, and just liberate yourself from all your wants, your desires, your intentions, just liberate yourself. And many times people have told me afterwards, like, that was so freeing, And so sometimes I think if we took a crystal, like just a simple quartz, and held it, activated it, and just spent a moment wanting nothing, it would allow us to find that inner void where there's extreme peace, and leads us to probably what we really need to be doing and who we really are.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, I think the book is really teaching us spend more time wanting nothing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. There's a biblical passage that I've quoted in my book, Choices, that talks about Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he's basically trying to get them to understand that you have everything that you need, and you are being cared for. You want for nothing. And it's one of those aspects, if you will, that a lot of us, and many who believe that we have this philosophy, we have this belief system that we have been following. I was born and raised a Catholic, and we always want to be able to look back on this philosophy and follow the teachings and so forth, and yet we seem to forget what was told us in this case by Jesus, that look at the lilies of the valley. What do they do? And yet there they are, and they're growing and they're flourishing and they're doing their thing, being here. And how much more are you that your creator won't take care of you? So tomorrow will worry for tomorrow. It'll worry for itself. So you don't need to worry about that. Just stay in the moment, stay in the now, if you will. That's one of the things that I've sort of incorporated into in my work, to try to remember, what it is that we're here for, What can you tell us in that regard as to why we are here? What is it that we're supposed to be doing at this particular point to sort of make this a better place for everybody?
Well, the alchemy, it's about elevating your consciousness, and which is partly by just, there's part of it relaxing that Happy just talked about, and letting go. And then when you get to this place where it seemingly is empty, there's just incredible light and incredible knowledge. And I mean, you find out that ironically, it's not empty; it's absolutely full. But you don't know that, But it's all we're at a I think a crucial point worldwide about a consciousness has to rise. We're at a place where it's hovering, and we've got to, it's like we've got to all ascend. We've all got to go up at the same time, or we're all gonna, like get pulled down in a gravity. So it's like I think it's one of those important points. But so we have an existential thing that's happening, but there's also like the larger plan of like it's consciousness itself that has to go, and then you find out that you're self-existing, I guess you could say. I mean, you find out that you are connected to everything in the universe,
which is being proven out time and time again by science, which is interesting. How, if I'm not mistaken, there was a time when science and spirituality were kind of combined. They were one and the same in one sense. You couldn't have one without the other. And then there came a time when, we can't have science and spirituality connected. They're but it seems like we're starting to get back to that, where we're beginning to realize that we are all connected, and that our actions impact other people. And so we're starting to learn that level of responsibility, aren't we?
Yes.
With the crystals and the Chintamani crystal, the Chintamani crystal matrix, the title of the book, Quantum Intention and Wish Fulfillment Gem. And of course, Hapi described what that means, the wish fulfillment aspect. It's a wish from your life's purpose, your reason for being here. Do you have experiences, sessions, etc., with people and working with the crystals that helps them to find their life's purpose?
Well, I do a session. It's about astrogemology. It's the application of using crystals with astrology. What I do is I take their astrological natal chart, and I figure out all the crystals aligned with all those zodiac points. Okay, like all the degrees of the zodiac belt. And I actually lay them on the chart, and then during the session, I'm tell that person what's going on with all their planets, and how that crystal can help them heal that point, balance it, or empower it. And then there are things in astrology that help us understand a little bit more about what is our work, what is our dharma, what is our purpose, like which way should we be going. And then whatever crystals are at these points, I encourage people to actively meditate with them, to wear them, to incorporate them into their life, and kind of like use them as teachers, not to worship them or expect them to be this like magic formula that will change everything. I'm always telling people, part of the working with crystal energy is that you got to bring energy to the table, because your actual electromagnetic field is actually activating the minerals. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you're working with them. You're working in tandem with them. They're bringing in new energy into a closed loop system. That's how I kind of look at it. It's like, if you keep doing same things over and over again, you're going to get the same result. If you bring in a crystal, you're bringing in new chemistry. Okay. So all of a sudden you got some new chemistry to kind of help you get outside of where you're stuck. And so I encourage people to work with these crystals, but I'm also teaching them why they're working with them, what points they're working on. And so it can be a fairly in-depth session.
Mm-hmm. And people certainly can set up a session with you and Johndennis through your website, the Chintamani matrix.com, will be linked, of course, to the website so people can find out more. It's the multidimensional field of energy, light, and consciousness that forms networks of gems on the etheric and physical levels. Thought just came to me. I'm curious as what's the connection in this case between the Chintamani crystal, because that's the title of your book,
Right.
and the Akashic records.
Well, if you think of it, all the crystals actually have memory embedded in them, which is partly, when they talk about the crystal skulls, is like being sort of like the primary exemplars of that sort of thing, where it has the history of the planet. It may not, now the crystals may not have the entire Akashic records, or they may link you to it.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of depends on a person's abilities. But it might be like a local library, where you can tap into something and you get Earth history, but you get the history of the beings that have been here and this part of the galaxy. So I think they're they're a way that you can access it, and they're a way that stores it. Because if you look at just the storage quality of crystals,
Mm-hmm.
one little crystal can actually, if you array it properly, can store more information than actually you can store in your entire brain. I mean, it's an outrageous thought, but there's scientists are working with that level of like using that capacity of smaller and smaller crystals to store that amount of knowledge.
It is astounding, especially the progress that we have made technologically. For example, in our computers, I still remember back in the mid-late 90s when I was building computers, and I thought that this is just an analogy, it's not a comparison per se, that a 512 megabyte hard drive was enormous. And today it's like a drop in the bucket by comparison to what we're saving on, and sometimes no bigger than a crystal on a little flash drive or USB drive and so forth. It's quite astounding. One gentleman in a cab, when I was taking a cab drive, I can't remember where, but we were talking about computers, and he says, "You do realize," this is back in the mid 90s, "you do realize that once they break the transfer rate, once they break the 1 megabyte per second transfer rate, all bets are off. It's just going to explode." And I have to wonder if this isn't going to lead us into the areas of telepathy. I mean, that's information, isn't it? That's being transferred from one person to the other. And my thought is that the information that's being transferred, I suppose, could be thoughts. I think of it more in context of images, but everybody's going to have their different perspective as to, okay, well, what is it that's being transmitted and received, that kind of thing. But there are those of us who are already sort of experiencing that, and not quite this flippant per se. Well, we're always ending each other's sentences, kind of thing. It's not quite that, but my wife and I have experienced this over time, where I'll be at work and she'll want me to stop by the store to pick up a few things. She will have forgotten to tell me about one particular item, and I'm thinking, "No, I think I'm going to pick up that item over there." And I do, and she's, "You're kidding. I was sending that to you." So I have a feeling that my wife and I have a sort of telepathic communication between us in that regard. Are you seeing that maybe that's part of our more conscious evolutionary process, that because language is so limiting, that this concept of telepathy will maybe clear up some of it's not reading minds, okay, so we don't want to go there per se, but that we're able to get across an idea without all of those filters that we've developed over the decades that we've been here.
Well, I mean, kind of bringing it back to crystals a little bit too. sometimes I teach people how to program a quartz crystal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we go through this process of coming up with an intention, which is visual, putting it in the heart, putting it in the belly, using breath work and inserting this into the quartz crystal. And so what I tell people is like, since quartz is silicon dioxide, which is actually in computer chips, what we're doing is we are embedding information into the silicon dioxide, and what we're doing is cutting out the middleman, and that's technology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going straight from the brain and our intention and straight into the quartz. And this may be what the Atlanteans were doing too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because there's these theories, of course, that before Atlantis got destroyed, the scientists back then embedded all of Atlantis and all of its information into quartz crystal.
And what's interesting is, of course, that all of this that we've been talking about, not from the ChintamaniMatrix.com, but the crystals, the gems, the energy, the vortices, all of these different things are all, to use the current economic vernacular, are all free from the standpoint that you don't have to shell out any coin for it, whatever kind of coin you happen to use around the world, that it's right there beyond your fingertips, but at your fingertips, to use the metaphor. And that's the way it was intended. And that's one of the things that was so sad about, for example, Tesla said, yeah, there's free energy. It's all around us. There's energy all around us. And of course, the powers that be said, nah, we're not going to let that happen. And I think we're starting to realize that, hey, it is available to all of us if we would just, I guess, open up our hearts and our minds, right?
I agree with that. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Tesla, because I've been thinking about Tesla a lot and how he said, this is free. There's energy everywhere for free.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think this is what gets, when I've spent time at stone circles in the UK, and I was using dowsing rods and looking at the energy that was there and the flows of energy, I think the people who built stone circles and pyramid mounds and pyramids, they were, that was all technology. Then they were somehow harnessing this free energy on the earth using these kinds of kind of like matrix like units, like either pyramids or stone circles and other things. Mm-hmm. They were somehow harnessing the energy, because I always notice that some of these things are always near agricultural areas. And I think they were using the energy in some way to harness agriculture.
One final question before we wrap things up here. I want to ask the two of you, whoever wishes to respond here, because we've done a few programs on the subject of life out there. What's the connection between, because I personally believe there is life out there. We are not alone in the universe. The 8.1 billion of us are not alone in the universe. What kind of a connection can you talk to us about to the other living beings in the universe, in what's been described as the trillions of galaxies? Trillions of galaxies. I can barely understand the national debt of 35 or 40 trillion dollars. Trillions of galaxies, and their role with the crystals and with us, the humans here on Earth.
Well, I mean, you've hit the main point. I mean, even the founding fathers we're talking about that there were beings other places, because you had to rationally believe that was the case, because of the immensity that you were just invoking. That's, that's the case. What's the probability that only conscious life is here on this one planet in this one galaxy, in a multi-dimensional universe. It's like, well, not very likely. So there's that, and the other thing about it is, like, if we even look at the next iteration of things, the meteorites. If you look at the meteorites, that one of the things is science always talking, well, it's just random, but actually it's seeded life and it's seeded consciousness. And the question is, did it really seed it randomly, or is there a design? Is there intelligent design behind it? And are there beings that are intermediate beings that are helping the intelligent design? I mean, it's like you're starting to look at everything about it, entirely differently. And the other thing you were mentioning before, like the meteorites themselves are bringing some kind of things, even platinum. They're called the platinum, family of metals. They're largely metals that are from space. I mean, they're from the meteorites. It's like we don't have that concentration here on our planet. So there is a mystery out there, and there is, your own rationality will tell you that. And I think we're starting to wake up to what's actually out there. It's immense.
And I think you can actually use crystals to help you interact with beings. I don't want to just say aliens from other galaxies, maybe other dimensions. I remember a very interesting experience with the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull a few years ago. And honestly, I probably was a little bit skeptical about crystal skulls. I don't know why, but I went to this event where Mitchell Hedges' crystal skull was in Phoenix. And I walked in the room and I went into a completely altered state. And it's like the veil was lifted and I could see like another dimension. And while everyone was sitting there, and of course there's lots of people there seeking healing from the Mitchell Hedges skull. So while the speakers were talking, I actually saw this almost like this gateway open, and all of these beings came down, like say almost this like light ladder. There's these small beings, and they were going to different people in the room trying to help them with healing. And it's like the skull and whatever was going on there had opened up this little portal. And I was literally sitting there thinking, who are these beings? Where are they from? I actually really felt like they were from some other place, like, I don't know, another star, planet, like they were from somewhere else,
Yeah. I tell you, it boggles the mind to start thinking of all of the different iterations of existence. What do they call them? Multiple timelines, dimensions, and so on and so forth. And the probabilities of life in this universe, however vast it is. They say it's growing. How they are able to measure that, I do not know, but they say it's growing, it's expanding. And then there's the possibility of multiple multiple universes, and the list goes on. And it's like, then when we leave our bodies, we go somewhere, because energy, which is what we're all made of, is never destroyed. It can never be destroyed, only transformed. And that just it's fascinating to me, this whole conversation. Hapi Hara and Johndennis, I want to thank you so much for being a part of what we're trying to do, is change the world for the better for all. For all. I know that's a tall order, but you got to start somewhere. and that's what we're trying to do. In school, they always said, what do you want to do, be, and so forth, or what do you want to accomplish? And don't say change the world, because it's too big. Just take little bites. And well, I'm now almost 64 years of age, and I want to change the world. And it's possible. It is possible, because REM probably said it best. It's the end of the world as we know it. And that was in that last second. And now now it's ended again, and now it's ended again, and it keeps ending. And we can't, I mean, just from, I think, if I'm correct in this, from a physics or quantum physics perspective, you can't go back to try to live a life the way it used to be. It's not possible. It's one of those. This is what's interesting, and and if you'd like to respond to this, once you know something, you cannot unknow it. Ergo, B, you are now responsible for doing something with it or not. It's your choice, and we talk about choices and knowledge of those choices to help make people's dreams come true. But the reality is that once you know something, and that's not belief, you know that you know, and we know there are certain things that I may not share with you because I don't need your justification, your stamp of approval. But I know in my heart of hearts, for example, that my life has meaning. I don't have to prove it to you. I just know it. And so it seems to me that now that I know that, I can't go back to the way I used to be. It would be incongruous to do so. Not even irresponsible. It's like, I know, I was sitting on a giant piece of granite on Inish Moor on the Aran Islands west of Ireland. A giant piece of granite, and below me was the ocean, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds of feet. But there I was, no fear at that moment of my feet dangling. Could have lost my shoes in the ocean, right? All right. But I also knew that I did not want to go over the side, but I wanted to have an experience, and I took some pictures either way, kind of thing. But it wasn't until that night that I became deathly afraid. I mean, I was safe and warm in my bed. All of a sudden the fear hit me, which was really strange. But I knew that I was okay. And so I calmed myself down and everything, and I went back to sleep. But I think that's really important for us to realize. And that's why I say this more tongue in cheek without being too serious. I usually say this at the end of the program. Folks, if you've listened to this entire program, now you have to deal with what's been said. You can't unhear it. So now, if not now, later, you're going to have to deal with the information that's been presented to you and consider it as a possibility. So that's kind of where I was going with that. And I want to thank the two of you for bringing a lot of this to our attention again. And thank you for coming back.
Oh, thank you, Richard. Thank you for the great questions and your commentary. I love the image of you on the side of the rock dangling over the ocean. Oh, that sounds like an epic moment.
Well, I will tell you that I had bought one of those wonderful little Irish caps, like the cabbies would wear, right? But it was made of wool. And I had stuffed it in this vest that I was wearing as I crawled back away from the edge. And the winds were blowing, and it blew out of my jacket, or fell out of my jacket, and was just resting there on the stone. Not on the edge, just on the stone itself. And of course, I get back to my wife, who kept asking me if I could tell her where I had put the life insurance policy. And I realized I didn't have my hat. Where's my hat? Where's my hat? And then I saw it over there, and I got to go back over there. Again, no fear. I just crawled back out there, got the hat, and came back. But it drove my wife crazy because, she thought I was crazy at the time. But yeah, that was a fascinating experience. And so has this been this program. I do have three final questions, and I'm going to bounce the questions back and forth to each of you, so you'll have an opportunity to think about your answer as we go. But before I do, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., a special edition of Tell Me Your Story. But we're also here Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. And we hope that you'll listen to all 9 programs that have 9 different topics, 9 different guests, 9 different conversations. I've heard it said number 9 is rather auspicious, so I'm kind of excited about that. We hope that you'll listen at those times. We stream live at those times at richarddugan.com. We podcast the programs. You can listen on demand at SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many others. And you can watch these conversations on YouTube, where you can subscribe both to the podcasts and the video casts. And hopefully you'll click notifications so that when a new podcast, video cast is posted, new conversation, you'll know about it. You can go there and you can tune into it. And if you'd like to support the work we're doing financially, we'd greatly appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you to those who have helped and those who will help. When they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, richard@richarddugan.com is the email, richard@richarddugan.com. And please spend some time going within, listening to that still small voice in that quiet, peaceful, calm place during this, the decade of perfect vision. With all that being said, we now move to no, I won't go there. I was going to our final round of questions to our contestants. No, we'll go to our final 3 questions for our guests, and we'll start with you. Who is Hapi Hara?
Who is Hapi Hara? Well, is that an existential question? What's interesting is, I know that sounds like a fake name, but Happy is really my real first name. Okay. So, when my parents named me, I think it was my grandmother said, I want a happy granddaughter. So that came out. And then my mother came up with this interesting spelling. So anyway, I'm a little kid and I read all the books in the house. I don't know. I know I'm under the age of 10. And I find this book somewhere in the house because there's a lot of religious books around, that said how Moses, when he was pulled out of the Nile, his name that his princess Egyptian mother gave to him was Hapi Mose. Okay, API-Mose. And it meant, because Happy is the god of the Nile. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I was shocked because I loved Egyptian stuff. Okay. Like from a really young age, I love pyramids and obelisks, and I love learning about the children of Israel leaving Egypt. I mean, I'm just kind of obsessed with Egypt. Mm-hmm. So I ran across this. I'm like, what is this? So I go and show it to my mother, and she's reading it, and she's like, she has this perplexed look on her face, like, whoa, kind of like, what have I done? Because I said to her, I said, did you name me after Moses, or did you name me after the god of the Nile? And so anyway, for a while, I went with my middle name because nobody could spell it. Nobody understood what it was. And here I am, a Christian, but I've got this weird Egyptian god of the Nile name. And then later on, I decided I'm just running with it. This is who I am, because this is the name I grew up with. And the god of the Nile is totally connected to Aquarius too. And I am an Aquarius. And so it has a little bit about, spreading the rivers of wisdom, and also pouring enlightenment onto other people. And so for me, that's like that. I think of like that name is like probably representing my higher self. Now I'm working towards it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Not saying I've arrived, but I think of that name as like the goal. Okay. Like I am filled with the Nile, and I help to give the Nile to others too. Okay. There's that story.
Okay. And to you, who is Johndennis Govert?
A wayfarer on this planet who can remember back a number of lifetimes, but not to identify with any of the way stops along the way. And I'm here to help other people. That's essentially it.
So, Johndennis, what gets you up in the morning?
The sun. You mean wow. But actually, I'm a person who I'm like a nighttime person. Mm-hmm. I was born at 1:30 in the morning, so I'm like indexed to night, so it's like it does take the sun of like the Arizona desert to get me up in the morning. I come into my own as the day goes on.
Mm. And Happy, what gets you up in the morning?
Well, actually, I'm going to agree with him. I was born at 3 in the morning. I'm a night person too. What gets me up in the morning? No, I have a lot of projects to do. I have people that need help. I have got books I've got to write. I've got projects to do. I've got a lot going on. I can't just stay in bed, depressed.
I hear you.
I got things to do.
Yeah. So, Happy, final question for you. What was your best day?
My best day. Whoa. Well, I mean, I'm gonna, my best day. Well, there's been so many good ones. I'm going to dovetail off of your little Irish trip, though. Okay, your little Irish experience, because then when you said that, it reminded me of a really epic moment on the Irish coast. And I'm not going to say this is the best day. I'm going to say this is a really good day because I can't whittle it down to one. Okay. Mm-hmm. But my daughter and I and one of her friends, we took a boat to Skellig Michael, which is an island off of the Western Irish coast. And I remember seeing this in the Star Wars movie. I remember seeing this island on the Star Wars movie, okay? It was like in The Force Awakens or something. And they were at the end of the Star Wars movie. They found Luke Skywalker. And I don't know, when I saw that movie, I didn't even care about the movie anymore. I was like, where's that island? I feel like I've been there before. I got to go there. And so I went and studied it and found out it was on this massive ley line that I've been kind of traveling on anyway. So then I made a point of going there. And I remember going up on the cliffs, and it was scary. Like there was these steep cliffs and these little stairwells and then these little beehives. And I felt like I was at the top of the world. And it really was one of my most epic days ever. Like I felt like I'd gotten to a place like something like almost an Indiana Jones movie, Mm-hmm. And I found treasure there. I don't even know what the treasure was. It wasn't tangible. It was something energetic. It was spiritual. And I don't know if I had a past life there or not, but I felt like I had arrived. And so I'm putting that in. I know your Irish story caused me to remember this, because I was thinking about it when you told me that, when you said your story. But I am going to put it in like a very top peak day, like somehow, like all whatever I've been doing in my life and in my past somehow had gotten me to that moment, to that point. And I listened to the signals and I'd gotten there. It's like I felt like I was an adventurer on a quest and I had found something important.
Yeah. So, Johndennis, what was your best day?
Oh, I'm going to do like it was the best of days. It was the worst of days.
That's the poet in you.
The best of times and the worst of times. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yeah. Well, actually, it was, I would say when I was in a trip to Peru and I met a bunch of like Incan elders. And, for these few days, we were going around to different places. And here we are at, like Machu Picchu and places like that. And as we're going along, I'm sort of like getting not just like a guide's view, but it's like, these are what the Incas, like the Incas ancestors are saying this was used for. And, whatever I saw, and it was just the magnitude of the rocks, the incredible thing. And it's like, it was one of those things that just sort of blows you out of the water because it's like everything that everybody's told you is not correct. It's like, look at these giant walls. Look at this. There's a whole different history here that I don't know about. And then I felt like, from that moment on, I was like on another layer of the spiral above wherever I had been.
Well, I want to thank the two of you for sharing with us here on the program today. This has been a lot of fun and very informative, educational, if you will. And we look forward to having you back again. You say you're working on a lot of books, so
Yep.
keep us posted on the next one, and we'll talk about that one here on Tell Me Your Story. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to law. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.